Good evening, and welcome to Sleep Sanctuary, where calmness and imagination meet to guide you into a restful sleep. Take a moment to settle in, dear listener. Let the day's weight drift away as you allow yourself to relax. The snow is falling gently outside your mind's window, the air crisp yet calm. Tonight, I'll guide you through a tale buried deep within the folds of winter, a story etched in frost and memory, waiting to be uncovered. Tonight, I'll take you to the mountains. I remember the biting cold first, the way it clung to my skin, sharp as needles. The trail beneath my boots was treacherous, packed with snow and ice, winding through jagged cliffs and silent woods. The mountains stretched endlessly around me, their peaks lost in grey skies heavy with snow. I had been trekking for days, chasing no destination in particular, simply following the call of solitude. But there was something different about that day. The air carried an odd stillness, deeper than silence. It wasn't just the absence of sound, it was as though the world itself was holding its breath. The snow fell heavier as I climbed higher, the wind whispering in fragmented sighs. My breath turned to frost in the air, and though I was alone, I couldn't shake the feeling that unseen eyes were watching. Then, I saw it. The faint outline of rooftops beneath the snow caught my eye first. At first, I thought it was a mirage born of exhaustion, but as I drew closer, the image sharpened into something real. There, nestled in a hollow between ridges, was a village encased in ice. The snow clung to every surface, blanketing homes, streets, and trees in pristine white. The rooftops jutted out like jagged teeth, their edges rimed with frost. It was utterly still, no footprints, no sound, no sign of life. Curiosity tugged at me, stronger than caution. As I stepped into the outskirts of the village, the air seemed to shift, heavier and colder, carrying with it the faintest sense of grief. I couldn't explain it, but I felt it in my chest, a sadness that didn't belong to me. This wasn't just a village abandoned by time. It was a place where time had stopped entirely, frozen in snow and secrets. And I had just begun to uncover its story. Before we journey deeper, let's pause here, letting the quiet of the snowy mountains settle around us. Close your eyes, if you wish, and imagine yourself surrounded by the soft glow of winter. The air is crisp, yet calm, and the only sound is the gentle whisper of snow falling around you. Take a deep breath in, feeling the cool, refreshing air fill your lungs. Hold it for a moment, then exhale slowly, releasing any tension you might be holding. With each breath, feel your body begin to soften and relax. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a snowy field. The ground is covered in a blanket of untouched white, shimmering faintly under an overcast sky. Each snowflake that falls seems to carry a message of quiet and peace, gently landing at your feet. Breathe in again, this time imagining the crisp scent of snow and pine trees, and let it fill your senses. Exhale, letting go of the weight of the day. As you stand there in this serene landscape, feel the stillness settle into your mind, like snowflakes falling on a calm surface. Now, notice the ground beneath you, solid and reassuring. The snow crunches softly under your feet as you take a slow step forward, then another, savoring the tranquil silence that surrounds you. Each step feels light, unhurried, and grounding. Allow yourself to be fully present in this moment of stillness. Let the worries of the world drift further away, as though carried off by the winter wind. Here, there's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be, except here, breathing, listening, and letting the calm embrace you. When you're ready, we'll continue, stepping gently into the story that awaits. As I stepped closer, the village came into sharper focus, and my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't merely abandoned, it was preserved, as though trapped in the middle of a moment long since past. Everything, from the rooftops to the cobblestone streets, was encased in a thin layer of glistening ice. The snow-covered buildings stood solemn and untouched, their shapes softened by frost. I ventured into what seemed like the village square, my boots crunching softly against the icy ground. The air felt heavier here, almost sacred, as if the village was holding its secrets close, reluctant to let me in. I paused, letting my eyes wander over the frozen landscape. Each detail seemed eerily perfect, the delicate icicles hanging from wooden eaves, the snow-covered trees frozen mid-sway, their branches like delicate lacework. At the center of the square stood a fountain, its once flowing waters now solid ice. A statue rose from its heart, depicting a figure cloaked in flowing robes, their hands cradling something indistinct, a small object covered in frost. The expression on their face was serene, almost reverent, and I felt an inexplicable pull toward it, as though it was the key to understanding this place. I moved cautiously, brushing snow away from the edges of the fountain to reveal faint carvings etched into its surface. Symbols and words in a language I didn't recognize wound around its base, their meaning just out of reach. Yet, even without understanding, I could feel their significance. This was no ordinary village. The houses that surrounded the square were small and simple, their doors tightly shut, their windows frosted over. As I peered into one, I could make out the faint outlines of furniture, chairs gathered around a table, a stack of logs near a hearth that hadn't been lit in years. It was as if the villagers had stepped out for just a moment, expecting to return, but never did. But there were no footprints, no signs of struggle or departure. It was as if the entire village had simply stopped. The longer I stayed, the more I noticed an undercurrent of emotion, a whispering presence in the air. It wasn't hostile, nor was it welcoming. It felt like grief, deep and abiding, yet strangely peaceful. the kind of grief that comes from a sacrifice willingly made. One house stood apart from the rest, larger and more ornate, its roof adorned with delicate carvings of snowflakes and stars. Its door was partially ajar, revealing a faint glimmer of light from within. My pulse quickened as I approached, drawn by the faint glow. Stepping inside, I found the air warmer, as though the cold had been held at bay. In the center of the room stood an altar, small and unassuming, yet radiating a quiet power. Something rested on it, covered by a fine layer of frost. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the object. Whatever it was, it held the answers I sought, or perhaps the questions I had yet to ask. The faint glow of the altar illuminated the room, casting soft shadows on the frost-covered walls. As I stood there, staring at the mysterious object resting atop it, an overwhelming sense of reverence filled the air. Gently, I brushed away the thin layer of frost to reveal what lay beneath, a crystalline artifact, intricate and delicate, pulsing faintly with a soft, inner light. The moment my hand grazed its surface, a rush of images flooded my mind, fleeting glimpses of faces, hands clasped in unity, and a village gathered under the pale light of a wintry sky. The air around me seemed to shift, growing heavier, as if I were standing in the presence of something far greater than myself. Through the visions, the story began to unfold. This village had not been forgotten by accident. Long ago, a terrible storm had descended upon these mountains, a storm so fierce it threatened to consume the land entirely. The villagers discovered that this artifact, this crystalline object, held a mysterious power, a power capable of preserving not just their village, but the fragile balance of the world around them. But the power came at a cost. The artifact's strength could only be activated through an extraordinary sacrifice. The villagers, bound by their unity and their deep love for their home, made a choice. One by one, they gathered in the square beneath the falling snow, their breaths visible in the freezing air, their expressions resolute. Together, they enacted a ritual that would freeze their village in time, protecting the artifact and the surrounding mountains from destruction. I could see them in my mind's eye, standing shoulder to shoulder, their faces etched with determination and peace. They had willingly offered themselves, becoming part of the eternal frost that now encased their homes, their memories, their very lives. This was not a story of despair, but of courage and selflessness, a community that chose to give everything to preserve what they cherished most. I stepped back from the altar, overwhelmed by the weight of what I had learned. The whispers in the air grew clearer now, no longer carrying only grief but also pride. The villagers had known what they were doing. They had embraced their fate with open hearts, trusting that their sacrifice would protect the artifact and its secret. As I turned to leave the house, I noticed something else, more carvings on the walls, this time depicting the ritual itself. The villagers were shown encircling the artifact, hands outstretched, their energy flowing into it as snow swirled around them. In the final panel, they stood frozen, their forms fading into the icy landscape, becoming one with the snow. I felt an immense respect for these people, who had chosen preservation over oblivion, unity over fear. Their story deserved to be remembered, and their sacrifice honored. I stepped back into the square, the artifact's glow still lingering in my mind, and realized I had become part of their tale. The village had chosen me as its witness. The artifact was unlike anything I had ever seen. It sat on the altar, shimmering faintly in the dim light filtering through the frosted windows. Its surface was smooth, crystalline, and delicate, refracting the faint glow it emitted into gentle beams of light that danced across the room. At its core, a soft pulse throbbed rhythmically, like the heartbeat of something alive. I knelt beside it, hesitant to touch it again, unsure of what might happen. The moment my hand had grazed it earlier, I had seen the villagers' story, their sacrifice imprinted in the artifact's essence. Now, in its quiet radiance, I felt as though it was waiting for me, or perhaps for someone, anyone, to listen to its message. As I studied it closer, I noticed faint patterns etched into its surface. They weren't random, they seemed purposeful, like intricate snowflakes frozen in time, each line connected to the next in a delicate weave. The patterns told a story, but not in words. It was as if they resonated with emotions and images rather than language. The artifact seemed to hum softly, an almost imperceptible sound that resonated deep within me. It wasn't mechanical or unnatural. It felt ancient, as though it was in harmony with the earth itself, a part of the mountains that surrounded the village. I reached out again, this time more deliberately, letting my fingertips brush the crystalline surface. The glow intensified, and the air in the room seemed to shift, growing warmer. Another vision washed over me, this time more vivid, more urgent. I saw the artifact in its earliest days, held by hands long gone. It had been discovered deep within the mountains, a gift from the earth itself, the villagers believed. It was no ordinary object, it held the power to preserve, to protect, to stave off destruction. But its power was fragile, like the finest glass, and it could only be wielded through sacrifice and unity. I saw the villagers as they first realized its significance. They had gathered around it, debating its purpose and their responsibility. They had chosen not to hoard its power for personal gain, but to use it selflessly to protect the balance of their world. Over generations, they became its guardians, their lives intertwined with its glow. And then, I saw the storm. The mountains trembled, the skies darkened, and a furious blizzard swept through, threatening to bury the village and the artifact itself. It was then that the villagers made their fateful choice. They poured their very essence into the artifact, activating its power and freezing the village in time, preserving it from destruction. When the vision faded, I found myself sitting in silence, the artifact's light still pulsing gently before me. It was more than an object, it was a testament to the villagers' courage and selflessness. And as I sat there, I knew that their story, the artifact's story, could not remain hidden beneath the snow forever. I had to find a way to honor them. The artifact pulsed again as I sat in the quiet room, the glow intensifying until the air seemed to ripple with its energy. I didn't reach out this time, it reached into me. A sudden warmth spread through my chest, and the world around me dissolved into light. I found myself standing in the village square, but it wasn't the frozen, silent place I had seen before. It was alive. Snow fell softly, but the streets were bustling with activity. Children ran past, their laughter echoing through the crisp air. The scent of freshly baked bread wafted from an open window, and villagers exchanged greetings as they went about their day. I turned in awe, watching life unfold in this place I thought lost. The villagers' faces were full of warmth, their interactions easy and familiar. It was a glimpse of what the village had been before it was encased in ice, a thriving, vibrant community filled with love and connection. Then the mood shifted. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the temperature dropped sharply. The laughter faded, replaced by the low rumble of an approaching storm. I turned to see the villagers gathering in the square, their faces somber but resolute. The artifact rested on the central fountain, its crystalline surface glowing faintly, as if aware of what was coming. An elder stepped forward, their voice steady and clear, addressing the gathered crowd. Though I couldn't understand the words, their meaning resonated within me. They spoke of the storm, the danger it posed, and the sacrifice required to protect their home. The villagers listened, their expressions a mix of fear and determination. They didn't waver. The elder reached out and placed their hands on the artifact. One by one, the villagers followed, forming a circle around it. Their hands linked, their breaths visible in the freezing air, they began to chant. The sound was low at first, a soft murmur that grew steadily louder, resonating with the hum of the artifact. The storm reached the village, its winds howling through the streets, but the villagers stood firm. Their chant grew in intensity, the artifact's glow brightening until it was blinding. I watched as the energy of the storm seemed to be drawn into the artifact, swirling within it like a vortex. Then it happened. The villagers froze, their forms becoming still and translucent, merging with the snow and ice. Their faces remained calm, almost peaceful, as they became one with the village they loved so deeply. The artifact pulsed one final time, releasing a wave of light that enveloped the village, preserving it in its crystalline state. The vision began to fade, the bustling life of the village replaced once more by silence and frost. I found myself back in the quiet room, the artifact glowing softly before me. The story of their sacrifice had unfolded before my eyes, and I was left with a profound sense of purpose. Their bravery, their unity, it was something the world needed to remember. Their legacy could not remain hidden beneath the snow. The weight of the villagers' sacrifice pressed heavily on me as I left the house and stepped back into the frozen square. The artifact's faint glow lingered in my mind, its story etched into my heart. The village had given everything, its people, its life, its very existence, to safeguard a balance I didn't yet fully understand. Their sacrifice had preserved not only their home but something far greater. Standing in the center of the square, I felt a deep sense of responsibility. I had uncovered their story, witnessed their courage, and now it was my duty to ensure they were not forgotten. This place, this frozen testament to unity and selflessness, deserved to be remembered. I began exploring the rest of the village, seeking clues that might offer more insight. Each house I entered revealed fragments of the villagers' lives, half-finished embroidery, wooden toys frozen in place, and books left open on tables. These weren't relics of a forgotten people, they were pieces of a story waiting to be told. In one house, I found a journal resting on a nightstand, its pages surprisingly intact. The handwriting was elegant, the words written in a language I couldn't read, but the sketches within spoke volumes. They depicted the storm, the artifact, and the ritual that had preserved the village. One page showed a figure standing alone in the snow, holding the artifact high as light radiated from it. Beneath the image, a single word was repeated over and over: remembrance. The villagers had known this day might come. They had hoped someone would find their story, someone who would carry it forward. I realized then that my presence here wasn't chance, it was purpose. As I returned to the square, I looked again at the fountain, the statue at its center cradling an unseen object. The artifact had been their anchor, their hope, and their legacy. But the villagers' story went beyond the artifact. It was about unity, bravery, and the power of selflessness. I resolved to document everything: the carvings on the fountain, the journal sketches, and the visions I had seen. My journal, tucked safely in my pack, became a canvas for their tale. I sketched the village square, the houses, the carvings, and the artifact's intricate design. I wrote what I had witnessed, as though the act of writing itself was a promise to these people. But more than recording, I realized I needed to share this story. This frozen village could not remain hidden beneath the snow, its memory buried by time. Their sacrifice had preserved the balance for the world, and the world deserved to honor them. As the evening light faded, I stood in the square once more, feeling a connection to the villagers that transcended time. Their story was safe with me, but it was also bigger than me. It was a story of courage, one I would ensure would echo beyond these silent mountains. Their legacy would not be forgotten. The time had come to leave. The village lay in silence, encased in its eternal frost, but it no longer felt lifeless to me. Every frozen street, every glimmer of ice, carried a story. This place was alive in its stillness, a testament to courage and unity, its whispers echoing softly in my mind. As I stood in the square one last time, the sky above began to change. The overcast grey shifted to a pale blue, and the first rays of dawn stretched timidly across the horizon, casting a warm glow on the icy village. The light refracted through the frozen surfaces, making the village shimmer as though the villagers themselves were offering a quiet goodbye. I walked to the fountain at the center of the square, the statue of the figure still cradling the invisible artifact. In my mind, I could see the ritual replaying again, the villagers standing shoulder to shoulder, their breaths visible in the freezing air, their eyes locked in shared determination. The weight of their sacrifice, their unity, struck me all over again. I knelt beside the fountain, brushing my hand against the frozen surface. "I won't forget," I whispered, my voice low and steady. "I'll carry your story with me. The world will know what you've done." The wind picked up, carrying with it the faintest sound, a melody, soft and haunting, as if the voices of the villagers had risen from the snow itself. It was not mournful but peaceful, a song of gratitude and release. I closed my eyes, letting the sound wash over me, and in that moment, I felt their presence all around me. Rising, I began to make my way back through the village, retracing my steps to the path I had taken when I first arrived. Each house I passed seemed to glow faintly in the dawn light, as though the villagers were watching me, offering their silent blessings. The weight I had felt before, the sorrow of uncovering their sacrifice, had shifted. It was no longer just grief, it was pride, reverence, and a profound sense of connection. At the edge of the village, I turned back one last time. The square, the fountain, the homes, it all stood quietly beneath the snow, the artifacts glow faint but steady in the distance. The village felt at peace, its story now carried in my heart. As I descended the mountain, the artifact's vision stayed with me, the laughter of the children, the courage of the villagers, the storm, and the sacrifice. I realized that their story wasn't just about preserving a village or protecting an artifact. It was about the strength found in unity, the courage to protect what matters most, and the beauty of selflessness. By the time I reached the base of the mountain, the village was hidden once more, its secrets buried in snow. But I knew its legacy would live on. The world would remember, and the whispers of the frozen village would echo far beyond the silent peaks.